We'll see. Which mic? This one's okay? Awesome. It's when you have awesome AV, it all makes it work. All right. So you've stuck out the whole day. Thank you so, so much for this. I really, really appreciate it. This is the last one after this. You're home free. It's great. We've talked a lot. I've heard about, let me see if this works. It does work? Awesome. I get to see you. One of the things, as you heard, is I'm a sign language interpreter. So if there's things in between you and me, I feel like I can't hear you. So it's a visual thing. I feel like now I can see you, and hopefully we can have a conversation. We've had a lot of really good conversation today talking about should we disclose, when do we disclose, if we should disclose. Totally get that. I can give some of the recruiter angle on that. And I feel like I want to change the conversation to not when or if or what we should disclose, but how to disclose. And the how to disclose, I believe it was Jonathan. He was really strong in how he described it before. Speak to your strengths. Because in each disability, there is inherent strength. So talking to your strengths will actually help assuage any of the fears that a recruiter or a hiring manager might have. And you might be wondering, what are you talking about? My son is on the autism spectrum. So you might already be thinking maybe challenges, but I can tell you he is one of the best 3D visual learners I've ever met. He can understand things the way an engineer does, and he's been able to do that since he was 3 or 4 years old. So I can work on his social skills, and I'll build to that. But he has natural strengths that would totally shine in the right environment. That's what I want everyone to think about, how their disability can be a strength. So let me just make sure I'm covering everything off here. What I'd like to do is go kind of through the stages of when you apply, to the phone interview, to the in-person interview, and then at work, because there are different times and ways that you can disclose. And I'll give you some of the corporate side of it, or the business side, as to why we won't ask at certain points, and why we'll wait for you. So if we go into the application process, I do remember somebody saying that they didn't want to disclose when they're applying. Absolutely your choice. You can if you choose to. It's not a requirement. Mostly we'll do that, frankly, for stats later if it comes up, but where I am at TD Bank, the recruiters never check to see if you have a disability when you apply. It's not part of their requirements. They're looking at your resume. I'll let you know they're also looking at your LinkedIn. You want to make sure that those two coordinate. One of the biggest things that they're doing with LinkedIn is making sure that your resume isn't exaggerating things, because we tend to be more honest in LinkedIn. It's true. So especially in tech, you really want to make sure that those relate. So you don't have to disclose. If you choose to, that's fine. Different businesses, we know most small businesses, actually 60% of all jobs in Canada are through small businesses. They won't necessarily have the same workplace accommodation programs that the bigger companies do. Absolutely fine. Again, speak to your strengths. So when, if you choose to disclose at point of application, great. If you choose not to, that's fine too. Then you throw in your resume. You're one of the few that are chosen for the phone interview. Fantastic. Do you tell them? Eek. And you might be wondering why and what to say. That's okay. I'll tell you with TD, we'll only ask you if you require accommodation for the interview. When I first joined in my role, I'm literally here to find great people with disabilities to see if they want to have work at the bank. I'm not a job coach, but if you've got a skill and a position that you'd like to work in the bank, I get to be your internal PR. I can be your public relations person to help make sure that you at least get a shot at that interview, and hopefully directly through to a job. So when it comes to the phone interview, we'll only ask, we talk about our little, hi, do you still have time to talk? It's usually about a 30-minute for a phone interview, so just bank your conversation for about 30 minutes, and then we'll go into our accommodation question. Every single phone interview will ask if you require an accommodation for the interview. We're specific that we're only asking for the interview because we want to make sure you have a fair shot. But we actually aren't going to ask you yet about your job accommodations or on workspace accommodations, because believe it or not, we don't want to feel as though we're being swayed ourselves by thinking there might be a disability. So we're making sure that any hiring manager, you are put into the mix like everybody else. You have equal access and equal opportunity to that interview. Some people would prefer to disclose. Again, absolutely your opportunity. But that's why we won't ask. If you choose to volunteer, you can. And sometimes it's beneficial, depending on a type of disability, if you want to disclose. So say, for example, somebody has a speech impediment. If it's a stutter or stammer, especially if it's worse if someone's stressed, like say a phone interview, think about, again, how you can speak to your solution going into the phone interview. When they give the accommodation question, say, yes, I would appreciate accommodation. I do have, you can say a noticeable or a long-term speech impediment, but, and I find it's usually a little bit worse if I'm stressed, like say a phone interview, and if you say that with a smile, okay. And then you can say, as things go on, it will probably lessen, but I'll ask for your patience as we begin. If it's not a speech impediment like a stutter or stammer, but it's a different speaking style, I would like to ask for your patience and perhaps a little bit of extra time for our phone interview so that I can fully articulate my thoughts throughout the interview. Please let me know if you'd like me to repeat any of the things that I've said so that I can be fully understood. So you're working with the person and you're already giving them strategies from the outset. And you're not giving it in a threatening way. You're not giving it a label, but you're just giving an opportunity for them to ask you questions and also to make sure that they fully hear your comments. And actually, I'll give another aside. You might be wondering why we do the phone interview, because so many people don't like the phone interview, and I get it, me neither, because you don't have a face you can connect with. And if you do perhaps have anxiety, or if you are on the autism spectrum, or any other reason, you might be nervous about being on the phone because there are a whole bunch of mores and norms that we use on the phone that we don't use in person. If somebody's quiet for a longer amount of time on the phone, we're less patient with it and we ask, are you still there? It's kind of the Verizon ad, are you still there? Are you still there? But the reason we use them is, frankly, we have so much turnover for phone interviews and we don't have enough meeting rooms. So for example, for each recruiter that works for us that might be hiring into branch roles, they need to hire over 200 people per person, per recruiter every year. There's no way that we could have enough room to book all of that, so we work with the phone. It's streamlining it for us. It doesn't make it a great experience. So two things with it. One, prepare. And when I say prepare, if you work with a PWD agency that's helping you for finding a job, we're pretty good at figuring out how to do mock interviews, but not mock phone interviews. So I wouldn't say with your job coach, but a peer of your job coach, do a 30-minute phone interview, not longer, not dragging it out to 45 minutes, but unless it's the speech aspect. But look to see how you can do that 30 minutes and do it over the phone when you don't have the body language or the smile to respond to, things like this, so you get a sense of what it's really like. And get comfortable in that space. There is one other reason, by the way, that we don't use phone interviews. And again, it's the same as not necessarily wanting to ask about if you have a disability to disclose beforehand. We don't want to prejudge a person the way we might in person. So it's actually supposed to be a way, again, to level the playing field, but it's not always the ideal for your experience. If you'd really prefer not to speak over the phone or chat over the phone, you are able to certainly ask for an in-person interview. They may delay the time of the interview, and it may be asking you to come down to wherever that office is. Entirely, you're welcome to do that. You are allowed to, and just say it would be better for a comfortable experience for a conversation. So I'm just making sure I have everything here. So next part after the phone interview, you've knocked that out of the park, you're doing great, and now it's going to in-person interview. This is usually with the hiring manager, at least this is the way it works for us at TD. So you're meeting with the hiring manager, you're setting up a date and time. Before you even meet with them, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with this, you are allowed to ask about the kind of interview it will be. How long will it be? Will they be asking behavioral questions? Will there be technical questions? You come across as though you're asking to be prepared, but it gives you the option to ask questions to get a sense of what they're looking for, so you're not going in there completely surprised. I do remember one candidate I was supporting, when he asked that question, the hiring manager was stunned. He thought, this person's asking, but in fact it was because they wanted to be so prepared that it actually really impressed them, and they ended up getting the job, which was great. So it's asking for accommodations for the in-person interview if you need them. Obviously, accessible space if needed, extra time if needed, asking about the kind of questions that will be asked. All of those help without yet necessarily having to disclose a name for a disability or even saying you have a disability. It just sounds like you're being very proactive. This is fantastic. And I would say prep. But for those who have anxiety, prep enough, because we can get ourselves going if we prep too much and we're thinking, oh my gosh, I have to remember everything and I don't remember everything, or I'm going to forget that one thing. Nobody else knows. It's okay, just go with it. For a phone interview, I would always say make sure you write out your top 3 strengths on a piece of paper. They'll be really encouraging going into the interview. And with the in-person interview, just make sure you're in a right frame of mind going in. If you need that little space to breathe, a bit of space to actually be on your own. And again, asking what it's going to look like, that can really help frame the lens to know what you're going into. The other thing just to know when you're going in, I'll always say, is to know your strengths. Know your strengths is probably the biggest thing that I see, and knowing how to frame them. I've had a lot of interviews with fantastic candidates with people with disabilities, and I love the candor that I hear in the authentic conversations. And about 5 minutes in, somebody will say, yeah, okay, so my problem is. I'm like, wow, I'm glad you feel safe to tell me. I want to have this conversation. But if you phrase it that way to a hiring manager, you're focusing on the problem, not the solution. So one thing, if I could dare make a blanket statement, people with disabilities, you'll find a lot of fantastic problem solving and a lot of creativity, because there's inherent barriers every single day, and you're always trying to figure out, how do I get through this situation? So figure out the solutions that you're always talking about. I had one candidate who was saying, he was at another event, and he put his hand up. He said, all right, I have to tell you, my problem is, interesting, I have dyslexia. And he goes, for me, reading is difficult, but I have a mind like a steel trap. I thought, okay. So I asked back, okay, what do you do right now for that? He goes, oh, well, I have this tool that I use that helps me record information, and then I can hear the audio. I said, okay, when you go into an interview, tell that part. Be solutions focused. Because the hiring manager, if they were nervous before, they're not now. So thinking about your solutions, how do you manage? Because you're managing every day just fine, thanks so much. How are you showing that to a hiring manager, that because you are the expert on your disability, you're the expert on managing your disability, and you can then become a partner in working through it. And that's the biggest thing, because a lot of well-meaning hiring managers won't ask because they're scared, right? Where you're talking about politically correct, you can't ask anything, you can't do anything, and I don't know, and I won't ask. Or they're out of sweetness and good intentions, they come up with solutions that will not work. So be that partner with them so that you can devise something together. Chances are you'll actually come up with something that's better and more economical. I don't know if you ever saw a video. There was this fantastic woman who was quadriplegic, and she loved reading, and not on an iPad, but actual books. And her struggle was turning the pages. And people with, again, great intentions were trying to figure out how to help her change the page when she didn't have the body movement from shoulders down. And they came up with all kinds of contraptions to go on her head and all this silliness. And then she basically said she needed a pencil that had a lid on it, because then she could stick it in her mouth, and then the rubber end, the eraser end on the pencil, she could turn it like this. Easy, for like 16 cents. But because they asked her and had her as part of the solution, you came up with something great that actually worked for her. So it's that solution focus you really want. I'm just making sure I'm covering everything off here. All right, so we've talked about the phone interview. We've talked about the in-person interview. I will ask, when you ask about the in-person interview, you'll see that when you ask, sometimes they'll talk about behavioral questions. How many people love behavioral questions? Exactly, nobody. But they're very effective. And the reason why we ask, and this is some kind of the secret decoder ring, is because past behavior predicts future behavior. That's what we really want to know. What did you do before? Because chances are, unless some pivotal thing and changed your world and now you'll never do it that way again, you'll probably do it something like that again. So how you respond, and you never want your answer to be more than about 3 minutes. So practice. Different scenarios, you can find a million examples online. What happened? What did you learn? What were the impacts? How was it win-win-win? Everybody's happy, win-win-win. Win means I win, you win, aka the customer, and how does the company win? So feel free to practice some of your stories so you're adding all of those elements, because the other thing that we butcher with the way we ask behavioral questions, we ask all 3 questions at once. If you have a problem with processing 3 questions at once, deaf culture does not ask 3 questions at once. And unless you have a hiring manager who's going to ask the 3rd question, I'll say it again, can you give me that? The person's not going to answer, and it's going to sound as though they're incomplete or didn't get it or have lower IQ. That's not it. It's a poor structure of the question. So go ahead and say, I think I answered that question. Was there any part I missed? You can ask that. You can ask them to repeat the question. You can ask for that minute's pause. But all of those things are totally fine. And it's not about you. It's the design of the question. Most of the accommodations that I talk about where we work, we're really actually quite proud of our program, and we're the only spot that has an assistive technologies lab where we have over 300 products that are available to talk about accommodations for you. We have a central fund that pays for everything, so if you need a special keyboard or JAWS on your computer or anything, we can do all of that all for free, all set up, and some of the things we can set up the night before so it's ready for you the next day. We've got all of this. It's really fun. But if you need any of those, it's simple thing to put in. And I never think that the accommodation is put in because there's an inherent weakness in you. That's not it either. It's not about you. To me, it's the environment or the work or the way it's designed that has barriers in it. So let's work with the accommodations to get rid of the barriers so you can shine. That's the point. Like, silly but simple example to illustrate it. If you are lucky enough to see, and if you are lucky enough to be able to read, and I say read this book, and then I turn off the lights, it's not a weakness of you, it's a design of the space. You need the light on because this is the way it works. So again, it's not a weakness in you. Let's look at this as though it's the design of the space or the design of the equipment has a barrier in it, and help us figure out a better solution for you. Two quick things I'd love to add. The behavioral question, by the way, is also going to tell me about your ethics and what you value. And I remember this great guy. And by the way, this is an interpreting thing because I still do this. If you're ever to tell a story, we often flip the verb to keep the confident, or the pronoun. So if it was a guy, maybe it was a girl, maybe it was a girl, it was a guy, woman, man, whatever. So if I say he, maybe it was she, so be it. But there was this great guy, and he wanted to talk about his flexibility. Great, how he was doing everything to exceed expectations to help his colleagues. And then he told me a story about how he wasn't supposed to do something because it would break a rule to do it, but somebody asked him, so he did it anyway. I'm like, I see your goal, but now you're telling me your ethics and what you'll actually do. That's not going to fly. So I had to chat with him about that one a little bit more. One of the things in my role is that, it's such a cool role, I love it, because I can now, I know the interpreters here, they're fantastic, and I love this skill, and I still do some on the side, because I want to still give back to the gift I was given with learning about deaf culture and American Sign Language and interpreting. But it's really kind of cool now that I get to talk. It's so fun. I get the mic. It's kind of fun. But I get to share ideas and hopefully have influence in a conversation and meet so many great people. One thing that I've been trying to do in my area is when I'm meeting great people, I feel lucky to be able to do it. And the roles that I'm trying to support you to find are ones you're ready for, you're skilled for, are passionate about. It's not just a job to have a job. This is not a charity. And I don't want to have people with disabilities be hired in because it's quote unquote the right thing to do. Like, of course it's the right thing to do, but it's your strengths and your viewpoint and your perspective that I want. It's those skills that make us better. Because in my view, if we have the right people on the inside that are helping build, we can create better products and services. Really quick case in point, there's a guy, so glad I got him in, it was amazing, and it was my first person that I was able to get hired in. He works for our accessibility for our mobile and our online accounts, so ones that customers would see. It's specifically looking at accessibility. So I asked questions. I'm like, okay, for accessibility, who has the toughest time having an accessible experience as a customer? It's blind customers, because they're dealing with screen readers and things like this, blind and low vision. So fine. Blind, low vision, hearing impaired, I apologize, all the questions, so to get all the categories. But I found a guy who has all the IT background, has the WCAG, W-C-A-G, certifications, and he's blind. Yes, because this is awesome, because he was going to be able to create a better product and service from the inside out. He could do better testing for us. We could do better QA, so we don't have to wait for the complaints for the second 2.0 rollout and lose customers and let people have frustrating experiences unnecessarily. That's what I'm talking about. I want to know your skill set and how we're stronger in creating better products and services because you're here. I could keep talking, but I think I'm good. So I would love to know if you have any questions, comments, feedback, anything? No? It is near the end of the day. Oh, I see one person here. Mm-hmm. Oh, rock, paper, scissors. Okay, oh, no? Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Okay. I am wondering the profile of the people that you are hiring, mm-hmm. Going through this whole set of hiring strategies, doesn't aim at a lot of our sons and daughters. So how do you propose that a company like yours mm-hmm. gets approached to start thinking about another pool of employers who might not even be able to do 10% of what you just described, no matter how much their disability is disclosed right away, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what do you think it will take for a company like yours mm-hmm. to set up other structures that are more flexible to that type of job hunters?
Yes, and your friend and I were chatting earlier. It depends, I believe, can I talk about the agency that your colleague was talking about? I don't want to disclose necessarily. Oh, no, not an agency, but a group. Okay. Okay, so when I was chatting with your friend, sorry, we were chatting about those with Down syndrome primarily and different intellectual disabilities. We're looking and to see how we can create programs that would consider actually creating new roles. So that's the one part that's a little difficult, that we don't typically create roles for particular demographics at all. Mostly we're saying if you have the skills and that's fine, then let me be your PR. I will do what I can to make sure you have a fair chance. But in this particular one, we're actually talking about it just in the beginning stages right now to see if we can develop a program that's not talking about specific skills, but perhaps we can look at what are tasks that we can look at that could be done easily, well, reliably, and with great execution by, particularly in this case, mostly Downs and intellectual disabilities from that group. Does that help? Yeah? Okay. You had a question. Oh, sorry, yes.
Yeah. I was just wondering what the conversation, if somebody's not a suitable candidate for a position, what the conversation might look like.
So, yeah, I get those too. I'm very big on intent. So my intent is to truly support and have a good conversation with you. And I want to make sure that you know that I'm here to support you. Or not you, but the person, the candidate. There's one candidate that comes to mind who's basically working at a clothing retailer. The education and background was similar and was looking for a senior project manager role. There isn't the skill set there to match, right? So then I can go back. Fortunately, you build up relationships so that I can have that conversation. So we can say, okay, here's the job description. Tell me more about that. What do you have? Okay, so what most of the competition right now is looking for has blah, 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 blah. And see, are there opportunities to grow within the company? So, and I've also seen it though on the other side, to be honest, where you have somebody who's very skilled, who basically says, it's okay, but I want to start at the bottom so I can do that and then I can grow. I don't want that either, because I have seen people who are definitely intermediate to senior level in skill set, and they have the capability and the background. Somebody's perhaps because of illness has been out for 2 years. Now, let's not start at the bottom when you don't have to. I can help work with a recruiter, speak to a gap in a resume. That's okay. That's partly what I like to be able to do, because I become your internal advocate. But I don't just say, yes, I'll refer you for everything, because frankly, if I do, the strength of my referral weakens, right? So I'll have that candid conversation. If somebody is applying for 57 roles in 2 months, you're probably not reading all the details. So let's have a conversation about that too. But it's because I'm guided by authentically wanting to help and not just fill stats, I usually go from there. I'm open to the feedback too. Yes.
Hello? Yes. Hi, I'm from Spinal Cord Injury Ontario. My question is, oftentimes the folks that we're working with, the interview is something that they can't do, but they may be able to do the job. So at TD, have you ever looked at sort of turning that process on its head and looking at job trials rather than putting people through a fairly rigorous interview process? Because like I said, the person may be able to do the job, but it's the interview that is the problem.
Absolutely, because it's two separate skill sets. So interview skills are very separate from job skills. And I'm doing as much as I can internally to make sure that our recruiting teams also know that, because the interview favors the charismatic extrovert. The job may make an extrovert go nuts, especially if it's like heavy data analytics or audit where you have to go down 16 levels to figure it out. We have done initiatives like the Dolphin Mentoring Day. We have worked with Specialist Sterna actually quite a bit. We're on, I don't know if it's 6th or 7th cohort going through. They have a different way that we're able to bring people into the bank. What I like to do is see what I can do to assist. We haven't as yet, now I haven't been in the role that long, so let me find out more information, done trials. A lot of it's making sure, frankly, that we're doing all of our checks and balances, not according to our system, but like we do have to make sure you have a criminal and credit check done. Sometimes there's testing in the rule. There are different ways that we can do it. And if you do require, or the candidate does require accommodation for the interview, please, like I'll give you my business card later. We'll work it out. And I can come and chat with you, your employment counselors, candidates, all of that stuff. So we can make it easier and look again at the solutions and possible ideas to partner with. Not everybody shines in an interview. Same thing, I am actually nervous for my own son because I don't know how well he'll interview, and an interview doesn't define who a person is. That also goes, by the way, for any job. If you don't get a job, a particular one that you've just hired for, it doesn't decide your worth as a person. It was one role and one job and one discussion. Just put that out there. It's just one conversation one day. So you have an immense amount of skills. Keep talking to those. Does that help? Yeah? Okay. I want to exchange cards. I'm quite serious later. Other questions? Yes.
Is TD planning to turn over a certain percentage of their workforce, like 10% of the workforce or 5% of the workforce, with individuals with diverse employment needs in the future? Is that like something that the diversities team is looking into?
We're trying not to go with a number. We don't have a target. We want to make sure as much as possible that whatever our current is, that we're always moving it forward. In some areas of the bank, we're being more aggressive with it, but it's not like we have to say, okay, we've hit 10%, now we're done. Because actually, the way it's going to turn out is that a lot of big companies, if they did nothing, their numbers are going to go up because more people are choosing to disclose. So I don't want to go on a number. It's finding out where the great talent is and making sure that I'm turning over every leaf that I can and I'm pushing as much as possible. And I'm just one person, but actually getting that message across the company. And we've actually got it like top level all the way down. There's a focus on hiring more PWD. So that open mind is becoming more and more. It's actually there. We have an executive committee. Top comment they'll talk about is recruiting. So we're thinking of you. We want to meet you. Yeah? Oh, I've gone over. Sorry. Thank you.